Imagine a world where rivers carve through winding canyons and vast seas reflect the heavy sky. It sounds like Earth. It feels like home. But if you were to stand on those dark shores, you would not find water. You would find liquid methane and ethane flowing at 290 degrees below zero. This is Titan, Saturn's largest moon. It is the only place in the solar system, besides our own, known to hold stable liquids on its surface. But here, the rain is fuel, and the rocks are made of ice, harder than granite. Scientists look at this world and see a ghost. They call it Earth's toxic twin, a mirror image of our planet twisted by alien chemistry and extreme cold. Why does this distant moon mimic us so perfectly yet remain so deadly? What secrets lie buried beneath its eternal, suffocating orange haze? Tonight, we do not look up at the stars. We descend into the fog. We travel to a place where the familiar becomes strange and the silence is deep enough to drown the world. Close your eyes. Let the earth fade away. We are arriving at Titan. To find this world, you must first travel through the immense, crushing silence of the outer solar system. You must leave the warmth of the inner planets, pass the asteroid belt where stones drift in the dark, and approach the kingdom of the gas giants. Saturn dominates this realm, a colossal jewel wreathed in rings of ice that shimmer like crushed diamonds. It is a spectacle of gravity and light, a monarch surrounded by a retinue of dozens of frozen moons. But among them, one stands apart. One refuses to glitter, one refuses to reveal its face, while the other moons of Saturn are stark, cratered balls of grey ice reflecting the sunlight. With a harsh, honest clarity, Titan is different. It is a silhouette, it is a secret, wrapped in a blanket. From the vantage point of space, it appears not as a rocky world, but as a perfect, featureless sphere of deep matte orange. It looks soft, almost like a piece of fruit hanging in the void or a heavy ember that has cooled but not yet extinguished. This is the orange veil. It is the single most defining feature of Titan, and for centuries, it was the source of our deepest frustration and our wildest dreams. For generations, astronomers pointed their telescopes at this strange moon. They expected to see craters, mountains, perhaps the glint of ice. Instead, they saw only this thick, impenetrable haze. It was a mask that would not slip. The probe, Voyager 1, in its grand tour of the solar system swept past in 1980, hoping to gaze upon the surface. But the cameras saw nothing but the fog. Titan kept its mysteries sealed tight, hiding an entire world beneath a layer of smog so dense that it felt less like an atmosphere and more like a physical barrier. What is this veil? It is not a thin wisp of air, like the atmosphere of Mars, which barely clings to the red dust. Nor is it the crushing metallic hydrogen depth of Jupiter. Titan's atmosphere is a unique anomaly. It is a thick, towering envelope of gas that extends hundreds of kilometers into space, reaching out like a ghostly halo. It is composed primarily of nitrogen, approximately 95%, a staggering similarity to the air we breathe on Earth. It is the only other nitrogen-rich atmosphere in the solar system, a chemical echo of our own home. But here, the familiar ends. Mixed into this nitrogen is a small, potent percentage of methane, about 5%. And it is this methane that transforms the sky. High above the surface, where the weak light of the distant sun strikes the upper atmosphere, a slow, silent alchemy occurs. Ultraviolet radiation smashes into the methane molecules, breaking them apart, forcing them to collide and recombine. They form complex chains of hydrocarbons, creating a thick organic smog. These particles are called tholins. They are not quite gas and not quite solid. They are a prebiotic dust, a fine, powdery soot that hangs in the air, absorbing the blue light and scattering the red and orange. This is why Titan does not have a blue sky. It has a sky of amber, a sky of heavy gold. This haze is so effective, so all consuming, that it acts like a global curtain. It paints a yellow orange veil over the entire surface, making it feel like a world entirely detached from our own. It creates a visual silence. From space, you cannot see the mountains, you cannot see the seas, you can only see the fog. Imagine floating just above this atmosphere. The silence here is absolute. Below you lies a world slightly larger than the planet Mercury, yet it feels softer, indistinct. The orange haze glows faintly, diffusing the sunlight. On Earth, the atmosphere is a lens that lets us see the stars. On Titan, the atmosphere is a blanket that hides them. If you were to descend into this fog, the universe would disappear. The rings of Saturn, the other moons, the distant stars, all would fade into a uniform, glowing abyss. The pressure of this atmosphere is another anomaly. It is heavy. At the surface, the air pressure is about 1.5 times greater than Earth's. It creates a dense, viscous environment. It wraps the moon in a tight embrace, trapping heat, insulating the surface from the absolute zero of space. Without this thick blanket, Titan would be just another dead, frozen rock. With it, Titan becomes a laboratory. The veil does more than just hide the surface, it alters the light itself. Sunlight, struggling to pass through layer upon layer of hydrocarbon aerosols, fails to fully illuminate the surface. It is heavily absorbed and scattered. By the time the light reaches the ground, it is no longer a beam, it is a glow. There are no sharp shadows on Titan. There is no stark contrast between dark and light. Here, there is no true day or night, only a suspended twilight. Imagine a late afternoon on Earth when the sun has dipped below the horizon, but the sky is still lit with a dusty, fading color. Now imagine that moment lasting forever. Imagine a world where everything seems blanketed in a soft, dusty glow. This is the eternal state of Titan, a perpetual dusk, a lighting condition that feels like a dream or a memory that is slowly fading. This lighting creates a mood of profound melancholy. It is a world without the harshness of the sun. The light is gentle, diffused, touching the tops of the ice ridges and the surface of the methane lakes with a tender golden hand. It makes the alien landscape feel intimate, enclosed. It feels like a room with the curtains drawn, a private space in the vast, cold house of the solar system. But the veil is also dynamic. It is not a static shell. There are winds here, high altitude jet streams that whip the haze around the moon, circling it faster than the moon itself rotates. There are layers of detachment, distinct bands of fog that float at different altitudes, separated by clear air, like the layers of an onion. And within this veil, clouds form, not clouds of water, vapor, white and fluffy, but elusive streaks of methane, dark and fleeting. For eons, this orange veil was the only thing we knew of Titan. It was a barrier to our understanding, a do not disturb sign hung on the door of a chaotic world. It forced us to dream. Because we could not see, we imagined. We imagined global oceans of oil. We imagined cliffs of wax. We imagined a world of monsters and slime. The veil served as a canvas for our fears, and our hopes. And even now, after we have pierced it with radar, after we have sent a probe to fall through it, the veil remains the defining character of Titan. It is the atmosphere that dictates everything. It dictates the temperature, it dictates the weather, it dictates the chemistry. It is the womb in which this strange, cryogenic biosphere incubates. To enter Titan is to surrender to this fog. It is to let go of the clarity of the vacuum and accept the ambiguity of the haze. It is to enter a world where sight is secondary to feeling, where the horizon is always blurred and the sky is a heavy weight pressing down. The orange veil is a reminder of isolation. Titan is far, it is cold, it is hidden, it does not want to be found. It wraps itself in this smog to keep the cold out, or perhaps to keep something in. As we hover here at the edge of this atmosphere, preparing to dive, we must respect the veil. It is ancient, it is complex, it is the shield of a sleeping giant. We are about to cross the threshold. We are about to slip beneath the mask. The orange light is rising up to meet us, swallowing the blackness of space. The view of the stars is fading. The silence is changing from the emptiness of the void to the heavy, pressurized hush of a world that has been holding its breath for 4 billion years. The veil is opening, not by parting, but by enveloping us. We are becoming part of the haze. We are becoming part of the secret. Drifting closer, the orange deepens. It shifts from a pale yellow to a burnt ochre. The density increases. We are no longer observing Titan. We are entering it. The veil is no longer an object. It is an environment. It is all around us. A sea of gas and dust. A suspended twilight that has no beginning and no end. We are lost in the glow. And in this loss of direction, in this surrender to the orange fog, we find the perfect state of drift. We are ready to fall. We are ready to see what the veil has been hiding since the dawn of the solar system. The mystery is no longer a distant ball in a telescope. It is here, it is now. It is the air we are moving through. It is the orange veil. We have passed through the outer veil. The black of space is gone. The stars have been extinguished, swallowed by the great orange ocean of air that surrounds us now. We are no longer travelers in a vacuum. We are divers. We are sinking into a world that is defined not by emptiness but by weight. On Earth, we often speak of the atmosphere as a thin blue line, a delicate shell protecting us from the void. But here, on Titan, the atmosphere is not a shell. It is a fortress. It is a physical presence that presses against you from every side. As we descend deeper into this golden smog, we begin to feel the fundamental difference of this world, the pressure. Imagine standing on the surface of the earth at sea level. The air around you is invisible, weightless to your perception. You move through it without effort. But on Titan, the air has substance. It has mass. The column of gas pushing down on the surface creates a pressure of approximately 1.5 bars, 50% greater than the pressure of Earth. To understand this feeling, you do not need to be an astronaut. You need to be a swimmer. Imagine diving into a deep, quiet pool. As you sink below the surface, the water wraps around you. It presses against your chest, against your ears. It holds you. At a depth of about 15 feet, you feel a gentle uniform squeeze. This is the sensation of standing on the surface of Titan. It is not a crushing force like the hellish depths of Venus or Jupiter. It is a heavy, comforting embrace. If you were to walk on Titan, you would not need a pressurized spacesuit to hold your body together. The moon itself would hold you. You would feel swaddled, enclosed in a blanket of nitrogen that is billions of years old. This pressure changes everything. It changes the way you move. It changes the way you breathe. It changes the way the world sounds. In this dense, cold air, sound behaves differently than it does in the thin atmosphere of Earth. The molecules are packed tighter together. Sound waves do not dissipate as easily into the nothingness. They linger. They travel further. A whisper on Titan might carry for miles across the flat, icy plains, but it would be a strange, distorted whisper. The extreme cold of the air, minus 290 degrees, slows the speed of a sound down. On Earth, a shout cracks through the air. On Titan, it would roll. It would be deeper, resonant, a low frequency hum that vibrates in your chest before it reaches your ears. It is a world of bass tones, a world where the wind does not whistle, it groans. This is the pressure of silence. The atmosphere acts as a dampener, a mute button for the chaos of the universe. The storms that rage high in the upper atmosphere are muffled by the time they reach the depths. The impact of meteors is swallowed by the gas before they can strike the ground. It is a protected space, a quiet room, locked away from the noise of the solar system. As we continue to sink, the density of the air becomes tactile. The wind here is not fast, but it is strong. Because the air is so thick, a breeze moving at just a few miles per hour would feel like a heavy hand pushing against you. It would have the force of a gale on earth. You could lean into the wind, and it would support your weight. You could almost swim through it. This density creates a slow motion world. Dust does not fly here, it drifts. When the wind picks up the organic sand from the dunes, it does not whip it into a frenzy. It carries it gently, lifting it, like silt in a river. The entire atmosphere moves with a fluid grace, heavy and deliberate. We are now passing through the detached haze layer, a strange band of smog that floats high above the main atmosphere, separated by a gap of clear air. It is like passing through a false ceiling. Above us, the orange light was bright. Below this layer, the world begins to darken. We are entering the deep twilight. The pressure is building. The temperature is dropping. We are submerged in a sea of nitrogen that is so cold it is nearly liquid itself. This is the air that Titan breathes. It is a paradox. On most worlds, an atmosphere, this thick, acts as a greenhouse, trapping heat and baking the surface. Venus is a victim of this trap. But Titan is different. Titan has an anti-greenhouse effect. The haze layers high above reflect the sunlight back into space, refusing to let the warmth in. But the infrared radiation from the surface is trapped by the clouds below. The result is a delicate frozen balance, a stable, icy equilibrium. The pressure holds the heat in, just enough to keep the methane liquid, just enough to keep the chemistry alive, but never enough to thaw the ice. Feel the weight of it. Billions of tons of gas pressing down. It is a shield. It protects the surface from cosmic rays. It protects the surface from the solar wind. It creates a sanctuary where delicate organic molecules can survive for eons without being destroyed. In this pressure, evaporation is slow. A puddle of methane on the ground might take years to dry up. The cycle of the world is stretched out. Everything takes its time. There is no rush in this heavy air. We are drifting down, mile after mile, through this endless orange fog. There is no horizon yet, only the glow. The sensation is one of falling into a dream. You are weightless in the descent, yet the air around you is heavy. You are isolated, yet the atmosphere is touching you, pressing against you, reminding you that you are not in a void. You are inside something vast. You are inside the lung of a giant. The silence is growing deeper. The only sound is the imaginary rush of the wind past our descent, a low, steady thrumming. We are approaching the surface now, but the ground is still hidden. The pressure is reaching its maximum. We are at the bottom of the ocean of air. Here, the atmosphere is thick enough to scatter the light completely. If you looked up, you would not see the sun. You would see a bright patch in the haze, a diffuse lamp illuminating a room with no walls. The light is everywhere and nowhere. It has no direction. It casts no judgment. This is the environment that cradles the strange lakes and the dark dunes. This is the blanket that keeps the toxic twin asleep. It is a pressure that does not crush, but preserves. It locks the world in a state of suspended animation. As we hang here, suspended in the deep atmosphere, we can feel the potential of this place. This dense air is not empty. It is filled with the ingredients of life, drifting, waiting, reacting. But before we touch the ground, before we see the rivers, we must understand the rain. We must understand the chemistry that falls through this heavy air. For now, just feel the weight. Let the pressure of Titan settle on your shoulders. Let it slow your breathing. Let it dampen the noise of your own thoughts. You are safe here, wrapped in the heavy, silent air of a world that is waiting for you to land. We are now deep within the atmosphere, floating in the heart of the orange veil. The black void of space is a distant memory, and the surface is still a hidden promise below. We are suspended in the in-between, a vast laboratory of gas and light that spans hundreds of kilometers. It is here, in this silent golden expanse, that the true magic of Titan begins. It is not a magic of spells, but of chemistry. It is the alchemy of the twilight. Look at the air around you. It is not empty. It is alive with movement at a microscopic scale. We learned that this atmosphere is mostly nitrogen, like Earth's, spiced with a hint of methane. But up here, where the faint ultraviolet rays of the distant sun still carry enough energy to strike, a violent and beautiful transformation is taking place. When a photon of ultraviolet light travels a billion miles from the sun and hits a molecule of methane in Titan's upper atmosphere, it shatters it. The molecule breaks apart, stripping away hydrogen, leaving a restless, hungry carbon atom. This atom searches for a partner. It finds nitrogen. It finds other carbon fragments. They collide, they bond, they merge. This is the heartbeat of Titan's sky. Simple gases are being broken down and rebuilt into something far more complex. They form acetylene. They form ethylene. They form hydrogen cyanide. These are the building blocks of organic chemistry, the very same compounds that may have drifted in the primordial soup of Earth before life began. But here, they are not swimming in a warm pond. They are floating in a freezing sky. As these molecules drift, they continue to grow. They find each other in the haze, clumping together, heavier and heavier. They evolve from gas into solid particles. Scientists have a name for this strange alien matter. They call them tholins. The word comes from the Greek for muddy or hazy, but that does not do them justice. Tholins are complex organic aerosols. They are a deep, rich, reddish brown. They are the reason Titan glows like an ember. Imagine a dust that is not made of rock or sand, but of the same fundamental stuff that makes up plastics, waxes, and perhaps the precursors to biology. Now, imagine this process happening not just in one spot, but across the entire face of the moon. Every second, millions of tons of these particles are born in the upper atmosphere. As they grow heavy, they begin to fall. This is the chemistry of twilight. It is a silent, global snowfall, but it is not a snow of white ice. It is a snow of organic rust. It falls slowly, drifting down through the thick atmosphere for years, filtering the light, softening the world. It coats the clouds. It settles on the haze layers. Eventually, it will reach the surface, painting the dunes and the ice in shades of chocolate and ochre. This constant rain of particles does something profound to the light. On Earth, sunlight cuts through the air. It creates sharp shadows. It creates a stark difference between noon and dusk. On Titan, the Tholins scatter the light in every direction. They act like billions of tiny mirrors and diffusers. By the time the sunlight reaches the depths where we are now floating, it has lost its direction. It does not beam, it glows. If you were to look at your hand here, there would be no shadow cast on your palm. The light comes from everywhere at once. It is a phenomenon known as isotropic illumination. You are inside a lamp. The world is bathed in a flat, uniform amber radiance. This lighting creates a psychological state of suspension. Without shadows, depth perception becomes difficult. The horizon blurs. The sky and the ground, if we could see it, would merge into a seamless gradient of gold. It feels timeless. It feels like a moment frozen in amber. And in a way, time is frozen here. Titan is tidally locked to Saturn. Just as our moon always shows the same face to Earth, Titan always shows the same face to its giant parent. It takes nearly 16 Earth days for Titan to rotate once. 16 days of slow burning sunlight. 16 days of long dark night. But because the atmosphere is so thick and the light so scattered, the transition is not abrupt. There is no sudden sunrise that blinds you. There is no sudden sunset that plunges you into blackness. There is only a slow fading, a gradual dimming of the gold into a deep brown, and then back again. There are regions on Titan, the terminator zones, where the line between day and night sits forever on the horizon. Here, the twilight never ends. It is a perpetual state of evening. The chemistry churns on, fueled by the memory of the sun. The tholins keep falling. The air keeps glowing. It is a melancholic beauty, a world that feels like an old photograph, sepia-toned and still. The chemistry here is doing what Earth does, building organic matter, but it is doing it in the cold, in the dark, without water, without urgency. We are drifting through a factory of the building blocks of life. These particles falling around us are waiting for a destination. Some will land in the dunes, piling up into vast seas of sand. Some will fall into the methane lakes, perhaps dissolving, perhaps sinking to the bottom to form a sludge of prebiotic potential. We are becoming coated in this ancient dust. The window of our imagination is stained with the residue of a billion years of photochemistry. The air smells faint and acrid, like asphalt on a hot day or the smoke of a distant fire. It is the scent of deep time. As we continue our descent, the haze begins to thin, just slightly. The snow of Tholins is getting heavier. The light is getting dimmer, shifting from bright amber to a darker, moodier orange. We are leaving the upper laboratory and approaching the surface. The chemistry has done its work. It has created the materials. Now we are about to see where they land. The suspended twilight is holding us. It is a bridge between the energy of the sun and the cold. Geology of the ground, it is a reminder that even in the freezing outer reaches of the solar system, the universe is cooking, it is mixing, it is creating. Prepare yourself. The uniform glow is about to break. Shadows, faint, soft shadows are beginning to form. The bottom of the orange sea is coming into view. The chemistry of the sky is about to meet the geology of the ice. The twilight is ending, and the alien world below is rising to meet us. For billions of years, the orange veil remained unbroken. The winds of Titan whispered to no one. The rains fell on unseen stones. The seasons turned in solitude. The moon was a closed room, locking its secrets away from the rest of the universe. But on a cold day in January of 2005, the silence was finally interrupted. We did not go there ourselves. We are too fragile for the billion-mile journey, too soft for the cold vacuum. Instead, we built a vessel. We built a shell of gold and aluminum, filled it with our senses, cameras for eyes, microphones for ears, spectrometers for a nose. We named it Huygens, after the astronomer who first saw this moon as more than a speck of light. It traveled attached to the side of the massive Cassini spacecraft, sleeping for 7 years as they sailed through the dark ocean of space. They passed Jupiter, past the asteroid belt, venturing further into the cold. And then, on Christmas Day, 2004, the moment of separation arrived. Springs pushed the probe away. There was no fire, no row of engines, just a gentle shove. Huygens drifted away from its mothership, spinning slowly to keep itself stable. It became a solitary object in the void, a small metal disc falling toward the orange giant. For 21 days, it coasted in absolute silence. It had no radio contact. It had no guidance. It was a bullet fired at a world of fog. Imagine that loneliness, a tiny machine constructed by human hands drifting millions of miles from the nearest solid ground, aiming for a target it could not even see clearly through the haze. Then the atmosphere took hold. The entry was violent, but brief. The heat shield glowed like a meteor as it slammed into the thick upper air of Titan. But soon, the fire died away. The parachutes deployed. The violent fall turned into a gentle drift. The lonely messenger had arrived. For 2.5 hours, Huygens descended. This is the period we must focus on, not the landing but the fall. 2.5 hours of swinging beneath a parachute, drifting through the alien sky. Imagine being that probe. You are hanging by a thread in an endless sea of orange fog. The winds buffet you, swinging you back and forth. You are spinning, and as you spin, your camera clicks, click, click, click. At first, there is nothing but the haze, the same featureless gold we saw from space. But as the minutes turn into hours, as the altitude drops from kilometers to meters, the veil begins to thin. The data starts to flow. A signal jumps from the probe to the mothership passing overhead and then leaps across the solar system to Earth. It takes an hour and a half for the light to reach us. We are watching the past. And what did the lonely messenger see? As it broke through the lower haze layers, the ground appeared. It was not a cratered dead world. It was a landscape of stunning familiarity. The cameras revealed drainage channels. They revealed shorelines. They revealed hills. From high above, it looked like the coast of England or the deltas of the Mediterranean. But it was alien. The hills were carved from water ice, stained, dark by the tholins. The channels were dry at that moment, but they bore the scars of flowing, liquid. The probe drifted over ridges and valleys. It saw the coastline of a dry sea. It saw the patterns of flow, the undeniable signature of a liquid cycle. It was the first time human eyes, through the proxy of a machine, had ever seen the face of Titan. But Huygens did more than look. It listened. This is perhaps the most haunting part of the mission. The probe carried a microphone. As it descended through the thick nitrogen atmosphere, it recorded the sound of the wind. It is a sound that exists in our archives today. A low, rushing whoosh the sound of an alien. Breeze rushing past the metal struts of the probe. It is the sound of a lonely world. When you listen to it, you are hearing the air of a moon nearly a billion miles away. You are hearing the breath of Titan. During this descent, the probe was entirely alone. It was an intruder in a world that had never known a visitor. It swung through the methane clouds. It tasted the aerosols. It measured the temperature dropping, then steadying. It was a suicide mission. There was no return ticket. There was no taking off again. The probe was designed to fall, to land, and to die. It was a sacrifice of technology for the sake of knowledge. As the ground rushed up to meet it, the uncertainty was absolute. The scientists on Earth did not know if Huygens would land on solid ice or splash into a liquid methane lake. They had designed it to float, just in case. They waited in agonizing suspense. The lonely messenger kept falling. The orange sky dominated its view. The dark, rugged terrain below grew sharper, more detailed. It saw river stones, rounded pebbles that looked like they had been tumbled in a stream. It saw a flat, dark plain stretching out to the horizon. The parachute slowed it down, but gravity was relentless. The drift was coming to an end. The journey of 7 years, the coast of 21 days, the fall of 2 hours. It all led to this single point in time. The probe prepared for impact. It turned its lamp on, illuminating the alien ground for the first time with artificial light. It reached out with its sensors. It was a tiny speck of warmth falling into a cryosphere. It is a poignant image. This small metal box falling through the amber twilight, about to touch a world that had been forbidden to us for so long. It carried the hopes of a species that looks up at the sky and wonders. It was our hand, reaching out across the dark, trying to touch the face of a stranger. The wind continued to howl softly, the haze continued to swirl, and Huygens, the brave, lonely messenger, descended the final few meters, ready to meet the ice. The fall is over. After drifting through the silent void for 7 years and descending through the thick amber atmosphere for 2.5 hours, the journey ends not with a bang, but with a soft, muffled thud. The Huygens probe strikes the surface. It does not splash into a methane sea, nor does it shatter against a cliff of jagged ice. It lands on a flat, dark plain, bouncing slightly, sliding a few inches, and then settling into stillness. The impact sends a tiny puff of dust into the heavy air, a cloud of organic aerosols that hangs, suspended for a moment before slowly drifting back down. The probe's sensors taste the ground immediately. It is strange. It is not hard rock, and it is not loose sand. The surface has the consistency of wet clay or creme brulee, a thin, brittle crust covering a softer, damp interior. It is damp not with water, but with liquid methane. It is a soil made of ice grains soaked in fuel. We have touched the alien world. We are standing on Titan. Let us freeze this moment. Let us kneel down in the dim, orange twilight and examine the ground beneath us. To the human eye, it looks like a dry riverbed in a desert on Earth. There are pebbles scattered everywhere, smooth and rounded, resting in the dark sediment. They range in size from marbles to fists. They cast long, soft shadows in the diffuse light of the distant sun. But do not be fooled by the familiarity. If you were to pick up one of those stones, it would not feel like the silicate rock of Earth. It would feel lighter. It would feel impossibly cold. These are not stones. They are chunks of water ice. On Earth, ice is fragile. It melts in your hand. It cracks under pressure. But here, in the crushing, Depths of the Titanian atmosphere at temperatures plunging to minus 290 degrees Fahrenheit, water ice undergoes a transformation. The extreme cold drains every ounce of thermal energy from its lattice. It becomes as hard as granite. It becomes the bedrock of the world. These stones are the geological bones of Titan. They have been tumbled and smoothed, not by wind, but by liquid. The roundness tells a story. It tells us that rivers have flowed here. Fast, energetic torrents of liquid methane have rushed over these ice rocks, tumbling them against each other, grinding down the sharp edges over thousands of years, polishing them into the smooth pebbles we see today. Now they sit dry and silent, waiting for the next seasonal flood, which might not come for centuries. The temperature here is a physical force. It is a cold so absolute that it stops chemistry in its tracks. On Earth, we think of cold as numbing. Here, the cold is a solidifying agent. It turns gas into liquid and liquid into stone. If you were to pour a cup of boiling water onto this ground, it would explode into ice crystals instantly, shattering like glass. The heat of the probe is a tiny, fleeting anomaly in a world of permanent cryostasis. Look out toward the horizon. The view is limited. The heavy atmosphere that hugged us during the descent now obscures the distance. The sky is a uniform, glowing dome of burnt orange. It feels low, pressing down on the landscape. The horizon is a blur, a fading of the dark ground into the bright days. You cannot see the mountains in the distance. Though radar tells us they are there, you are enclosed in a bubble of visibility, a small circle of clarity in a world of fog. The silence on the surface is heavier than it was in the air. There is no hum of machinery here, other than the dying batteries of the probe. There is no bird song. There is no rustle of leaves. There is only the wind. But even the wind sounds different here, because the air is 3 times denser than Earth's atmosphere. The wind pushes with a ghost-like weight. A gentle breeze at your back would feel like a heavy hand guiding you forward. It whispers across the ice pebbles, a low, constant murmur that never rises to a shriek. It shifts the dark, sandy dunes miles away, grain by grain, in a slow migration that takes eons. The probe sits in this alien garden of ice and shadows. For about 90 minutes, it fights the cold. It sends its data back to the mothership Cassini, which is racing overhead, recording the frantic last words of its child. Huygens transmits pictures, images of a flat pebble-strewn plain under a yellow sky. It measures the thermal conductivity of the slushy ground. It smells the air, detecting methane, nitrogen, and traces of complex organics. But the cold is relentless. It seeps through the insulation. It saps the chemical energy from the batteries. The electronics begin to slow. The transmitter's signal grows weaker. The heat fades. And then the signal stops. The lonely messenger dies. The link to Earth is broken. The first and only visitor to the surface of Titan becomes part of the landscape. It is now just another rock on the frozen plain, a strange, metallic, geometric shape sitting among the rounded ice stones. But the world around it does not care. Titan continues its slow, deep rhythm. The wind continues to blow, piling tiny grains of Tholen dust against the side of the dead probe. Over time, it will be buried. The orange snow will cover it. The methane rains, when they return, will wash over it, cooling its metal skin even further, locking it into the ice. This is the touch of ice. It is the realization that this world is real, tangible, and indifferent. It is not a simulation. It is a place where gravity pulls, where wind blows, where ice waits. Imagine standing there next to the silent probe. You are the only warm thing in a billion miles. You can feel the cold radiating up through the soles of your boots, seeking to claim you. You can feel the heavy air pressing against your suit. The texture of the world is brittle. The ground is a mixture of the hard and the soft, the bedrock of ice and the drifts of organic powder. It is a monochrome world, painted in sepia tones. There are no greens, no blues, no reds. Only the gradient of orange, brown, and black. It is a place of profound preservation, without oxygen to rust the metal, without life to decompose the materials. The probe will remain there unchanged for millions of years. It is a monument to curiosity, frozen in time. The surface of Titan is a landscape of waiting. The stones wait for the river. The dunes wait for the wind. The lakes wait for the rain. And now, the probe waits for nothing. It has completed its fall. It has touched the ice. It has become one with the silence. As we linger here, in the fading warmth of the mission's end, we realize that the surface is only the skin of the mystery. The ice we stand on is not just a floor, it is a ceiling. Beneath these frozen stones, beneath the kilometers of rock hard crust, there is something else. The planet is hiding a secret deeper than the haze. We have touched the ice. Now, we must imagine what lies beneath it. The journey is not over. It is only going deeper. The cold is a barrier, but it is also a gateway. The surface is silent, but the depths might be alive. We remain on the surface, standing in the quiet aftermath of the landing. The probe lies silent. At our feet, the wind has died down to a barely perceptible whisper. The orange twilight seems to deepen, the heavy atmosphere pressing closer, as if the moon itself is holding its breath. Look up. High above the haze layers, something is changing. The uniform glow of the sky is darkening. Shadowy streaks are forming in the upper atmosphere, coalescing into vast, elusive shapes. These are clouds, but they are not the white, fluffy, cumulus clouds of Earth. They are dark, oily, and heavy. They are made of methane vapor, gathering strength in the cold upper air. Titan is preparing to weep. On Earth, a storm is a violent thing. It arrives with thunder, with flashes of lightning that tear the sky, with wind that whips the trees. But on Titan, the weather is a ghost. It moves with a terrifying slowness. The clouds drift sluggishly, burdened by the density of the air. They do not race, they loom, and then the release begins. Watch the first drop form. It breaks free from the cloud bank kilometers above. On Earth, gravity would snatch this drop and hurl it toward the ground, accelerating it into a blur, smashing it against the pavement in a fraction of a second. But here, the rules of motion are rewritten. Titan's gravity is weak, only about 14% of Earth's. It is comparable to the gravity of our own moon. At the same time, the atmosphere is thick, creating immense resistance. These two forces, the weak pull from below and the heavy push from the air, conspire to create a phenomenon that is hypnotic to behold. The rain does not fall, it drifts. The droplets are huge. On Earth, a raindrop is a small tear-shaped thing, barely a few millimeters across. On Titan, the rain forms into perfect spheres, the size of grapes, or even large marbles. They are centimeter-wide globes of liquid methane, crystal clear, shimmering, like glass in the amber light. Watch them descend. They float down with the leisurely pace of snowflakes or feathers. You could track a single droplet with your eye, following its path from the bottom of the cloud all the way to the ground. It is a spectacle of suspension, a storm in slow motion. Imagine standing in this downpour. There is no need to run for cover. The rain falls so slowly, that you could almost walk between the drops. They descend in a lazy, vertical dance, spiraling slightly in the weak currents of the air. As they drift closer, you can see the world reflected in them. Each sphere contains a distorted image of the orange sky and the dark ice below. They are jewels of fuel falling from the full heavens, and when they strike the ground, there is no sharp splash, there is no violent shattering. The large, heavy drops land with a soft, dull plop. They flatten out, then merge into the soil. The sound of a titanian storm is not a roar, it is a muffled drumming. It is a sound of fingers tapping on velvet, a low, rhythmic lullaby that permeates the silence without breaking it. This rain is cold, minus 290 degrees. If it touched your skin, it would burn. With the intensity of fire, freezing the cells instantly. But from behind the safety of our visor, it looks beautiful. It looks harmless. The ground begins to change. The dry creme brulee crust we stood on earlier begins to darken. The methane seeps into the spaces between the ice pebbles. It wets the tholin dust. The landscape turns from a matte brown to a slick, glossy black. Rivulets begin to form. Because the liquid is methane, it has a lower surface tension than water. It flows easily, slippery and fast, despite the slow rain. It seeks the low ground. It trickles around. The frozen rocks gathering volume. Soon, the sound changes. The soft drumming of the rain is joined by a gentle gurgle. Streams are being born. They carve through the ice, washing away the dust, exposing the dark, hard bedrock beneath. These ephemeral rivers appear only once in a great while, perhaps once every Titan year, which lasts 29 Earth years. This is a desert world that dreams of the flood. For decades, the surface is dry, wind-blown, and static. And then the slow rain comes, and the world remembers how to flow. The storm overhead does not move quickly. It hangs there, emptying itself with agonizing patience. The twilight grows dimmer, the orange glow muted by the curtain of falling liquid. You are enclosed in a wet, dark room at the edge of the solar system. It is a hypnotic state, watching the large, clear spheres float down, one after another, endlessly. It slows your own heart rate. It syncs your breathing to the rhythm of the fall. Drop, float, land. Drop, float, land. There is no thunder here to startle you. Lightning on Titan is rare, perhaps non existent in these methane clouds. There is only the rain, the sheer physical weight of the sky turning into liquid and returning to the surface. As the streams merge, they begin to move with purpose. They are heading downhill toward the basins, toward the poles. They are carrying the materials of the mountains down to the seas. They are the arteries of the moon, waking up to circulate the lifeblood of the planet. Stand here for a while longer. Let the slow rain wash over your vision. Feel the peace of a storm that has no anger. It is just physics playing out in the cold. It is just a world watering itself with fire in the quietest way possible. The ground is slick now. The probe is glistening, covered in a thin film of liquid gas. The dust has turned to mud. The world feels new again, washed clean by the toxic rain. And as the cloud finally passes, drifting away on the heavy wind, the rain tapers off. The last few giant droplets float down, lonely stragglers returning home. The silence returns, but it is deeper now. It is the silence of a world that has been quenched. The rivers are flowing, and we must follow them. The rain has ended. The slow, heavy drops have ceased to fall from the amber sky. But the movement on the surface has only just begun. The silence of the plains is now broken by a new sound, a low, continuous murmur. It is the sound of the moon draining. Gathering from the high ridges and the saturated dunes, the liquid methane seeks a path. It finds the cracks in the ice. It finds the ancient scars of previous storms. It coalesces. 1,000 tiny rivulets merge to form a stream. 10 streams merge to form a river. And suddenly, the landscape is cut by a ribbon of absolute blackness. These are the rivers of Titan. From high above, if you were gazing down through the clearing haze, you would see a pattern that stops your heart with its familiarity. You would see meandering lines, twisting and turning, in sinuous curves, branching out like the veins of a leaf or the capillaries of a lung. They look exactly like the river systems of Earth. They look like the Nile winding through the desert or the Mississippi carving through the plains. But this resemblance is a hallucination of geometry. The physics are the same, but the chemistry is alien. The fluid flowing through these channels is not water. It is a mixture of methane and ethane, liquid natural gas. On Earth, we burn this substance to heat our homes. We trap it in tanks. We fear its flammability. But here, in the oxygen-free freeze of Titan, it is as harmless as a mountain spring. It is simply a liquid, doing what liquids do, following gravity. Let us stand on the banks of one of these rivers. The soil beneath our boots is frozen water, ice, hard and gray. The banks are steep, carved by eons of erosion. Down in the channel, the dark fluid moves with a mesmerizing grace. Because liquid methane is less viscous than water, thinner, lighter, less resistant to flow, it moves with a strange agility. It swirls and eddies with little effort. It slips around the obstacles of ice boulders without the crashing turbulence we expect. It is a slick, fast-moving shadow. Look at the color. It is dark, almost black, contrasting sharply against the lighter, frost-covered terrain. It reflects nothing but the dim, orange sky above. It looks like a river of ink or river of oil, sliding silently through a frozen wasteland. As it flows, it works. It carries the burden of the moon. It picks up the loose granules of ice and the dark Tollan dust, transporting them downstream. It scours the canyon walls, deepening the valleys, sculpting the face of Titan, just as the Colorado River sculpted the Grand Canyon. It is a geological engine powered by the cold. Follow the current. The river widens as it descends from the highlands. It enters a vast canyon system known to astronomers as Vid Flumina. Here, the walls of ice rise high on either side, steep and jagged. The river fills the canyon floor, a highway of fuel moving in the dark. There is a profound loneliness in watching this flow. A river on Earth implies life. It implies green banks, fish swimming in the current, animals coming to drink. But here, the banks are barren. The water is toxic to life as we know it. There is nothing drinking from this stream. There is only the flow itself, a mechanical process in a biological void. And yet, it feels alive. It pulses, it surges, it responds to the contours of the land. As the river travels further, the terrain begins to flatten. The rushing energy of the highlands dissipates. The black ribbon begins to slow. It spreads out, dividing into smaller channels, braiding and weaving across the flat plains. We have reached the delta. Here, the river deposits the sediment it has carried for hundreds of miles. It builds new land, layer by layer, out into the basin. The fan-shaped patterns of the delta are intricate and beautiful, a testament to the fluid dynamics that govern the universe, regardless of the planet, regardless of the liquid. The view ahead opens up. The narrow canyon walls recede. The horizon stretches out flat and dark. The smell of the air changes, becoming heavier, richer, with the scent of standing hydrocarbons. The river is ending. It is reaching its destination. It is pouring its black volume into something much larger, something that swallows the stream without a ripple. We are approaching the coast. The river of fuel is about to lose its identity, merging into the vast, silent body of the Methane Sea. The journey of the rain is complete. The journey of the ocean is about to begin. Stand here at the mouth of the delta. Watch the black current slip into the vast expanse. It is a quiet transition, a surrender. The energy of the fall is gone. Now, there is only the drift. The river has led us to the edge of the world's greatest mystery, the Kraken Mare. The river has surrendered. The narrow, energetic currents that carved through the highlands have widened, slowed, and finally dissolved into something vast. We have arrived at the destination of all flow on this world. We have arrived at the pole of the planet, the frozen crown of Titan, where the liquid methane gathers in immense, silent reservoirs. Stretch your imagination now. We are standing on the shoreline of a body of liquid so large that it curves over the horizon. This is Kraken Mare. It is the largest sea on Titan, a monster of the deep north, spanning an area of nearly 150,000 square miles. It is bigger than the Caspian Sea on Earth. It is deeper than we can measure. But do not think of the oceans of Earth. Do not think of the blue Atlantic, churning with white caps, smelling of salt and kelp. Do not think of the crashing roar of the Pacific. Kraken Mare is a sea of ink. The liquid stretching out before us is a mixture of methane and ethane, cooled to a temperature where life, as we know it, would shatter instantly. It is black, pitch black. It absorbs the faint light of the distant sun and gives nothing back but a dark, oily sheen. It looks like a limitless expanse of obsidian glass poured over the world. The most striking feature of the sea is not its size nor its cold, it is its stillness. On Earth, the oceans are never quiet. The moon pulls the tides. The winds whip the surface into fury. A sea is a chaotic, noisy place. But here, on Titan, the physics of the wave are different. The gravity is low. The liquid is dense, more viscous than water, moving with the sluggishness of cold oil. And the winds, though they blow, struggle to lift this heavy fluid into peaks. The result is a phenomenon that feels supernatural to a human observer. Kraken Mare is a mirror. Radar scans from the Cassini spacecraft revealed a surface so flat, so smooth that for thousands of miles, the variation in height was less than a few millimeters. Imagine that. A sea spanning a continent, yet flat as a polished table. There are no crashing breakers here. There is no surf pounding the jagged cliffs of ice that line the shore. There is only a gentle, rhythmic lapping, a slow, viscous slosh against the frozen beach. Slap, pause. It is the quietest ocean in the solar system. Walk out onto the headland. Look down into the depths. The liquid is clear, despite its dark appearance from a distance. If you were to shine a light down, you would see the shelf dropping away, the floor of water ice plunging into the abyss. We do not know what lies at the bottom of Kraken Mare. Perhaps vast deposits of organic sludge, the settled dust of billions. Years of Tulan rain, perhaps vents releasing nitrogen bubbles. But on the surface, there is only the reflection. Because the liquid is so still, it reflects the sky with perfect fidelity. Look out at the horizon. You see the amber dome of the atmosphere mirrored exactly in the black liquid. You see the dark clouds of methane drifting lazily in the sky, and their twins drifting just as slowly in the deep. The horizon blurs. It becomes difficult to tell where the sky ends and the sea begins. You are suspended in a sphere of orange twilight, floating in a void of heavy gold. It is a place of profound isolation. You are standing at the edge of the known map. Beyond this shoreline, there's nothing but the cold, liquid expanse. No ships have ever sailed here. No creatures have ever breached the surface to breathe. It is a wilderness of absolute purity. The name Kraken conjures images of sea monsters, of violent tentacles dragging ships to their doom. But the irony of Titan is that its Kraken is a sleeping giant. It is a sea that never storms. It is a sea that simply waits. Occasionally, a magic island appears, a bright spot on the radar that vanishes days later. Perhaps it is a burst of nitrogen bubbles rising from the deep, fizzing on the surface like a soda before disappearing. Perhaps it is a drifting iceberg of porous ice. These are the only ghosts that haunt this water. Feel the atmosphere here at the pole. It is colder, denser. The mist hangs low over the water, a thin fog of ethane vapor. The silence is magnified by the flatness. Sound travels effortlessly across the mirror, but there is no sound to travel. Only the beating of your own heart, the only rhythmic thing in a world of slow motion. This is the ultimate destination of the methane cycle, the rain that fell in the slow motion or storm, the rivers that carve the valleys. It all ends here in this black reservoir. It sits here, holding the energy of the moon, waiting for the slow evaporation that will start the cycle all over again. To stand by Kraken Mare is to look into the eye of an alien world. It does not blink. It does not look away. It offers you a reflection of solitude so deep that it feels like a physical weight. We have seen the sky. We have touched the ice. We have followed the rivers. And now we have stood at the edge of the abyss. But the journey is not over. We must leave the liquid north. We must drift back toward the equator, to a place where the liquid is gone, and only the wind remains. We are going to the dunes. The sea is behind us now, a flat black mirror fading into the mist. We turn our backs on the silent north. The black mirror of Kraken Mare fades into the mist. Behind us, its stillness left to the ages. We are drifting south now, gliding over the frozen landscape, watching the terrain change beneath us. The channels dry up. The mud turns to dust. The air loses its dampness, becoming crisp and dry. We are entering the equatorial belt of Titan. This is the Belly, the Darklands. It is a region that wraps around the belly of the moon like a belt of shadow. And here, the geology of ice gives way to the geology of wind. Rise up a little higher. Look down through the haze. What you see is not a random scattering of hills or craters. You see lines, perfect, parallel lines, etched into the surface of the world. They stretch for hundreds of kilometers, unbroken, uniform, hypnotic. These are the dunes of Titan. They are colossal. Some of these ridges rise to heights of over 100 meters, skyscrapers of dust standing against the amber sky. They are spaced kilometers apart, a rhythmic pattern that repeats endlessly toward the horizon. From this height, they look like the waves of a petrified ocean or the furrows of a giant plow that tilled the world and then left. But let us descend again. Let us stand in the trough between two of these massive ridges. The ground here is dark. We are surrounded by walls of shadow. But this is not the golden sand of the Sahara, nor the white gypsum of New Mexico. Pick up a handful of this material. It is light. It is coarse. It does not grit against your gloves. It clumps softly. This is not sand made of stone. It is not silica worn down by water. This is the graveyard of the sky. Remember the tholins? Those tiny organic particles we watched form in the upper atmosphere, falling like rusty snow. This is where they end up. For billions of years, that slow twilight rain has settled on the surface, and for billions of years, the wind has herded it. The wind here is a relentless sculptor. It blows from the west, a steady, driving force. It picks up these lightweight, plastic like grains and piles them up, layer upon layer, century after century. It builds mountains out of dust. Listen, can you hear it? In the canyons of the north, we heard the gurgle of rivers. Here, there is only the wind. It whistles through the troughs of the dunes. It hisses as it slides over the crests. It is a dry, rasping sound, a monotone drone that never changes pitch. It is the sound of deep time. These dunes are not static. They move, but they move with a slowness that defies human perception. A single grain might take a year to roll a few inches. A dune might take a millennium to migrate a mile. It is a geological migration, a slow motion march of darkness across the ice. Standing here in the shadow of 100-meter wall of organic dust, you feel a profound sense of insignificance. The dunes are so large and you are so small. They block out the horizon. They block out the confused terrain of the rest of the moon. There is only the dune in front of you and the dune behind you. It is a landscape of abstraction, just lines and shadows, geometry and silence. There is no water here to wash the dust away. There are no rivers to break the pattern. There is only the wind and the sand. It is the driest place on the moon, a sand sea that covers nearly 20% of Titan's surface. The color is deep and rich, a dark asphalt brown, almost black in the dim light. It absorbs the orange glow of the sky, creating a somber, moody atmosphere. It feels like walking through a landscape painted in heavy oil paints. Occasionally, the wind picks up. It swirls into a dust devil, a vortex of dark particles spinning across the plain. It rises like a phantom, dancing silently for a few minutes before collapsing back into the stillness. It is the only sudden movement in a world of slow drifts. This place feels eternal. The mountains of Earth wear down. The coastlines shift. But these dunes feel as though they have always been here and always will be. They are the memory of the atmosphere made solid. Every grain of sand is a captured molecule from the sky. To walk here is to walk in a trance, one step after another, sinking slightly into the soft, dark drift. The scenery does not change. The rhythm does not break. It is a place of meditation, a place where the mind can let go of details and simply exist in the flow of the wind. You are drifting now. The repetition of the ridges is lulling you, up one slope, down the other, up, down, shadow, light. The monotony is a blanket. It wraps around your thoughts and quiets them. There is nothing to do here but watch the wind move the dust. There is no destination in the dunes. There is only the expanse. We have seen the wet heart of Titan. Now we are standing in its dry, dark skin. But even this is not the end. The dust came from the sky, but the moon itself. The moon has a core. There is one last layer to penetrate, one last secret to find. We must leave the surface entirely. We must go where the wind cannot reach. We must go down, through the sand, through the ice, into the dark belly of the world. The dunes are just the blanket covering the sleeper. Now we must find the dream. The wind has stopped. The hissing of the dunes is gone. The orange light, which has been our constant companion since we entered the atmosphere, has finally been extinguished. We are no longer on the surface. We have left the world of weather and entered the world of geology. We are sinking. Imagine passing through the floor of the desert. The sand of organic dust gives way to something harder. We are entering the crust of Titan. This is a shell of water ice, frozen to a hardness that rivals the bedrock of Earth. It is 50, perhaps 100 kilometers thick. It is a fortress wall that wraps around the entire moon, sealing the interior away from the cold. Vacuum of space. As we descend through this ice, the silence changes. It is no longer the silence of a quiet room. It is the silence of solid rock. It is a crushing, heavy stillness. The pressure builds with every kilometer. The temperature is steady, locked in the deep freeze. There is no light here, no day, no night, no twilight, only the absolute crushing black. We are traveling through the shield. This ice protects the heart of the moon from the impact of comets, from the radiation of Saturn, from the ravages of time itself. It is a tomb, but it is also a womb. And then, after an eternity of darkness, the resistance fades. The solid ice gives way. We have broken through. We are floating. Beneath the frozen shell, hidden from the universe, lies a secret that changes everything. We are swimming in a global ocean. This is not a pocket of water. It is a sea that encompasses the entire moon. It is deep, far, deeper than the oceans of Earth. It wraps around the core of Titan in a continuous, unbroken layer. But taste the water. It is not the fresh, sweet water of a mountain lake. It is thick, it is salty, it is a brine rich in dissolved salts and sulfur, and it is mixed with ammonia. This is the key. Ammonia acts as a powerful antifreeze. It lowers the freezing point of the water, allowing it to remain liquid even here in the dark, cold outer solar system. It is a slushy, super cool deep. The temperature is far below zero, yet the water flows. It circulates. It moves with the slow, rhythmic breathing of the tides. Saturn is close. Its massive gravity pulls on Titan, stretching and squeezing the moon as it orbits. This friction creates heat, just enough heat to keep this hidden ocean from freezing solid. It is the heartbeat of the world, a pulse of thermal energy generated by the dance of celestial bodies. Imagine drifting in this abyss. There is no surface above you to break. There is only the ceiling of ice, kilometers thick, pressing down. There is no bottom below you that you can see. You are suspended in the void of water. It is the safest place in the solar system. Up on the surface, there are storms of methane. There are seasons of radiation. There are meteor impacts. But down here, nothing touches you. The ice shell absorbs every blow. The ocean is a sanctuary, a stable, unchanging environment that has existed for billions of years. In this total darkness, life would not need eyes. It would not need color. It would need patience. We do not know what lies in this water, but we know that on Earth, wherever there is water and energy, there is life. We find it in the deepest trenches, in the crushing dark, living off the heat of vents and the chemistry of the rocks. Could it be here? Between the ocean and the ice ceiling, there is a strange transition zone. Scientists call it a layer of clathrate hydrates. These are crystalline cages of ice that trap molecules of methane inside them. They act like a slow release valve. As the ocean moves, as the heat rises from the core, these cages destabilize. They release bubbles of methane. Imagine these bubbles rising slowly through the crust, finding cracks and fissures in the ice, traveling upward for miles until they finally burst out onto the surface, feeding the atmosphere, creating the clouds, driving the rain. The ocean is the engine. The surface is just the exhaust. We are drifting in the engine room. It is quiet here. The water is heavy, dense, and comforting. It feels like being held. It feels like returning to a time before birth. There is no rush in the deep. Currents move with the slowness of geological eras. molecules, mix. Chemistry happens in the dark, unseen, unrecorded. This is the secret ocean. It is a reminder that the most important things are often hidden. We look at Titan and see a toxic orange ball. We see a hostile world of gas and ice. But inside it is wet, inside it is waiting. The darkness is not empty. It is pregnant with possibility. It is a vast, silent potential, drifting through the vacuum, carrying a secret that it will never tell. We are small here. We are specks in the black water. But we are not afraid. The ocean holds us. The ice protects us. The silence soothes us. We have gone as deep as we can go. We have found the heart of the moon. And now it is time to let go, to stop swimming, to stop searching, to simply drift. The journey inward is complete. Now the only direction left is out, back to the stars, back to the dream. But we will carry the memory of this water with us, the memory of the secret ocean that sleeps beneath the ice. We have reached the end of the descent and the end of the deep dive. We have touched the bottom of the world, floating in the hidden ocean where light has never shone. Now, the gravity of the story reverses. It is time to leave. Slowly, gently, we begin to rise. We drift up from the crushing depths, passing through the miles of water, through the layers of high-pressure ice that form the shell of the moon. We emerge from the crust, breaking through the surface of the dark dunes. The wind greets us. Again, that low, rasping hiss of nitrogen moving over organic dust. We ascend higher. The dunes shrink into lines. The lakes of methane become mirrors reflecting. The orange sky. The rivers become veins. We pass through the heavy rain of fuel. The slow motion storm fading beneath us. We drift up through the thick amber haze, the layers of smog, parting like curtains. The orange glow brightens, then fades. The blue of the upper atmosphere appears for a fleeting second, a thin halo of scattered light, before we break the surface of the air. Silence returns. The vacuum returns. We are back in space. Look down at Titan one last time. It hangs there in the blackness, a perfect silent sphere. The scars of the surface, the canyons, the seas, the mountains of ice are gone. They are hidden, once again beneath the veil. From here, it looks peaceful. It looks like a sleeping ember, glowing softly against the cold backdrop of the stars. Pull back further. The moon shrinks. It becomes a marble. And as it recedes, its guardian comes. Into view, Saturn. The giant planet dominates the sky, a colossus of gold and cream stripes, ringed by the most beautiful structure in the solar system. Titan is just a speck compared to this monarch. It orbits the giant in a slow, wide loop, a dance that has continued for 4.5 billion years. Watch the motion. It is not fast. It is a stately, majestic drift. Titan circles Saturn. Saturn circles the Sun. The Sun circles the heart of the galaxy. It is a clockwork of gravity, moving with perfect, silent precision. There is a comfort in this orbit. It is the eternal orbit. It does not require fuel. It does not require effort. It simply is. It is the definition of stability in a chaotic universe. Think of the time scale here. While we sleep, Titan moves. While civilizations rise and fall on Earth, Titan completes another slow turn. While the continents of our planet drift and crash, the methane rain falls on the ice. It will continue long after we are gone. In 5 billion years, when our sun swells into a red giant, consuming the inner planets, the heat will finally reach here. The ice of Titan will melt. The hidden ocean will rise to the surface. For a brief final moment in the history of the solar system, Titan may become a blue world, a water world, basking in the warmth of a dying star. But that is a dream for the distant future. For now, it remains the orange moon, the toxic twin, the silent keeper of the cold. We are drifting away now. The distance is growing vast. Titan is no longer a world, it is a point of light. It joins the other specks in the dark, Rhea, Iapetus, Enceladus, a family of frozen ghosts orbiting the ringed giant. The noise of the journey is gone. The data, the chemistry, the radar images, they all fade away. What remains is the feeling of weight, the feeling of cold, the feeling of a peace. So deep it resembles stone. You can let go now. The universe is holding everything in place. You do not need to worry about the orbit. Gravity has it. You do not need to worry about the rain. The clouds have it. You do not need to worry about the dark. The stars have it. We are floating in the great, wide safety of the void. It is quiet here. It is still. The show is over. The curtain of the nebula is drawn. Titan spins on. A lonely, beautiful world, dreaming under its blanket of orange fog. Drift, float, sleep. The cosmos is vast, and you are small, and you are safe. Good night, traveler. Good night, Titan.